Welcome back to Study Live. We are seeing the chapter Morphology of Flowering Plants, and in this chapter we are going to see all the functions, the anatomy of a flowering plant. So before we start with a basic plant, we are going to see that a plant has got two systems. A plant has two systems. One system which is below the soil is known as the root system, and the one which is above the soil is known as the shoot system. So what is the difference between the root system and shoot system? We are going to see that. And in this root system, we are going to see about the main root and the branches coming out from the main root. So that's why we can say that ये जो root system होता है ये कैसा होता है? Homogeneous. Homogeneous मतलब इसमें सिर्फ और सिर्फ roots आते हैं. जबकि हम लोग शूट सिस्टम अगर देखेंगे तो शूट सिस्टम इज हेटेरोजीनियस. हेटेरोजीनियस इट इज बिकॉज इसमें क्या आते हैं? डिफरेंट पार्ट्स आते हैं. लाइक वी हैव टू स्टडी अबाउट द स्टेम, द फ्रूट्स, द फ्लावर्स, द लीव्स. So we have to study about the stem, leaves, fruits, flowers, seeds. So ये सब. So in this chapter हम लोग ये सब topics पढ़ने वाले हैं. तो हमारा first topic आने वाला है about the root. The second is going to be about the stem. The third is about the leaf. Fourth is about the fruit, flowers, seeds, and then we are also going to study the floral formulae and the different we are going to see the different families of plants. So हम लोग फ्लोरल फॉर्मूले के बाद अलग अलग फैमिलीज देखने वाले जो प्लांट्स में है प्रेजेंट है. We are going to study about Fabaceae family, Solanaceae family and Liliaceae family. So this is all we are going to study about in morphology of flowering plants. So let us start with the term about what is morphology. जब भी हम लोग देखते हैं वर्ड morphology, morphology वर्ड का मीनिंग क्या है? So this word morphology means it is the study of the structure. Structure का study. It is the study of the structure. We are going to study about the structure. It can be external morphology when we are studying the external structure, and it is going to be the internal morphology when we are studying the internal structure. So this is all what we have to study in this chapter on morphology of flowering plants. So this is what our topic is all about. So let's begin our chapter and see all these topics in detail. So when we begin with the chapter, let us see the first topic over here. When we see morphology of flowering plants, morphology means what? It is the study. Now it is going to be the study of the size, shape, structure of plants, animals and microorganism and the relation of their constituent parts. So morphology word का meaning होता है जब भी study किया जाता है किसके बारे में? About the size, the shape and the structure of plants. So when we are saying अपने chapter का नाम क्या है? Morphology of flowering plants. So ये chapter में हम लोग सिर्फ plants का aspects देखने वाले हैं. तो यहाँ पे बट जब भी morphology टर्म की तरह देखते हैं तो इट इज़ अ जनरलाइज्ड टर्म जहाँ पे हम लोग स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ प्लांट्स, एनिमल्स, माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिजम्स एंड उनका रिलेशन विद देयर कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट पार्ट्स देखेंगे. अभी आपके सामने यहाँ पे क्या दिख रहा है आपको? एक बीन का सीड है. दिस इज अ डाइकॉट सीड. इन दिस वी कैन सी दिस इज द कॉटिलिडॉन एंड हियर वी हैव सीड के ऊपर देयर इज द प्रेजेंस ऑफ द सीड कोट एंड हियर वी हैव द रेडिकल. एंड रेडिकल से हम लोग देखेंगे जो कनेक्शन रहता है बिटवीन द कॉटिलिडॉन एंड रेडिकल, दैट कनेक्शन इज नोन एज हाइपोकोटाइल. एंड द कनेक्शन बिटवीन द प्लिम्यूल एंड द कॉटिलिडॉन इज द एपिकोटाइल. देयर इज अ सिंपल ट्रिक टू रिमेंबर दिस. If suppose we have this as the cotyledon, ये कॉटिलिडॉन के ऊपर आ रहा है पार्ट, दिस पार्ट इज कमिंग अबाउ द कॉटिलिडॉन, सो दैट इज व्हाई इट इज कॉल्ड एज एपिकोटाइल. This is coming below the cotyledon. Because it is below the cotyledon, it is known as hypocotyle. So epicotyle और यहाँ पे क्या है hypocotyle. ये ऊपर है कॉटिलिडॉन के इस करके एपिकोटाइल, ये कॉटिलिडॉन के नीचे है इस करके हाइपोकोटाइल. सो जो एपिकोटाइल है वो बाद में क्या बनता है, इट फॉर्म्स दी प्लिम्यूल, इट फॉर्म्स दी प्लिम्यूल. एंड जो कॉटिलिडॉन के नीचे है हाइपोकोटाइल बाद में बनता है रेडिकल, it forms the radical. So let us see ये radical क्या करता है. This radical gives rise to a part which is known as the root system. It is the embryonic part. बाद में ये radical form होता है क्या, root system. Whereas plumule is the embryonic part which gives rise to the formation of the shoot system, which is the stem. So this was about the radical and plumule. Let us see the parts of a flowering plant. एक फ्लावरिंग प्लांट है तो उसमें आप लोग को दिखाई देंगे दो पार्ट्स होते हैं. जो अंडरग्राउंड पार्ट रहता है उसको रूट सिस्टम बोलते हैं, एंड जो अबाउ दी सॉइल रहता है अबाउ दी ग्राउंड दैट इज कॉल्ड एज दी शूट सिस्टम. So as you can see in this diagram, in this figure, we can see this part is known as the root system. ये जो पार्ट दिख रहा है आपको सॉइल के नीचे है, बिलो दी सॉइल, अंडरग्राउंड पार्ट, दिस इज नोन एज द रूट सिस्टम. एंड द वन विच इज अबाव, दिस इज नोन एज द शूट सिस्टम. अब ये शूट सिस्टम में क्या क्या आ रहा है, दिस शूट सिस्टम इज कमिंग कंप्राइजिंग ऑफ द स्टेम, द लीव्स, द फ्लावर्स, the fruits, and inside the fruit we have the seeds. So these are all the parts of a typical flowering plant. एक typical flowering plant के parts. So let us see first the root system. So root system की बात करेंगे, जो radical होता है embryo का, the radical of the embryo, it is going to give rise to the root system. So let us see the characteristics of the roots. जब भी हम लोग roots देखते हैं, so what we can see over here is these roots are typically, these roots, they do not show the presence of nodes and internodes. Roots में nodes और internodes नहीं होते. What is the meaning of a node? Node word का meaning क्या होता है, node? Node means वहाँ पे क्या होता है, tightly packed cells. There are tightly packed cells. That is why it is known as node. Now they do not bear any bud. मतलब उनमें नोड नहीं होता, उनमें बड भी नहीं होता. हम लोग देखेंगे they are positively geotropic because they are growing towards the soil. Soil की तरफ grow हो रहे हैं. They are negatively phototropic because they are growing away from the sunlight. जब भी हम लोग वर्ड यूज़ करते हैं पॉजिटिवली, पॉजिटिवली मतलब वो उनके डायरेक्शन में है. पॉजिटिवली जियोट्रोपिक मीन्स डायरेक्शन ऑफ द सॉइल. Negatively phototropic means away from light. Now the roots are normally underground and they are non-green in color, which means they are brown in color. They are never green in color. Let us see the functions of the roots. Now roots का main function होता है वो plant को anchor करता है into the soil, which means it is going to fix the plant into the soil. Now this root has got root hair जहाँ से water और minerals का absorption होता है, कहाँ से, from the soil. The tip of the root, they synthesize plant growth regulators, which is nothing but regulating the growth of the plant. So यहाँ पे अगर हम लोग देखेंगे root system का classification देखेंगे, so root system, we have three types of root system. The first one is the tap root system. जब भी हम लोग word देखते हैं tap root system, what does that mean? In this tap root system, we are going to have एक main root होता है. Here we can draw this tap root. It consists of one main root which is known as the primary root. ये one main root है जिसको primary root बोलते हैं. जो branches आ रहे first order के, they are called as secondary roots. The branches of the second order are known as tertiary roots. So here we can say the root which is coming from the radical, the root which is coming from the radical and continues to grow. वो continue होता है grow होने के लिए क्या form करता है, primary root, and it gives off branches of various order forming a tap root system. So taproot basically is going to grow from the radicle. It is going to grow continuously and form the primary root, और उनसे जो branches आ रहे they are going to form the secondary root, and finally we'll have the taproot. Now this taproot, it is the characteristic feature of dicot plants. So dicot plants like we have pea, beans, gram, groundnut. So this is the characteristic root in these plants, which are the dicot plants. Let us see what type of roots are present in monocot plants. So in monocot plants, we have got these thin thread-like structures which are known as fibrous root. When the radicle is repeatedly branched and forms a tuft of roots from the base of the stem, it is known as the fibrous root system, and this is the characteristic feature of monocots like wheat, jowar, maize, barley, which are nothing but the cereals. They are the characteristic feature of monocot plants like maize, wheat, rice, jowar. So these fibrous root, they are coming from where? They are coming from the base of the stem, and in the base of the stem we have this as the node region. This region is known as the node, and from that we have got a tuft of equal size roots which are coming. So these tuft of equal size roots which are emerging from the base of the stem, these roots are known as the fibrous root. Now adventitious root system is similar to the fibrous root system because these roots also arise from any part or of the plant other than the radicle, and that's why they are known as adventitious roots. So adventitious roots are nothing but they are fibrous root. So the other name for adventitious roots are the fibrous root, and another name for tap root, they are also known as true roots. The tap roots are also known as the true roots because they are the original roots which are present in dicot plants. So here we can see the figure and understand the difference. So this is nothing but our tap root. This is our tap root. So this is the branch of the first order which is known as the primary root. These are the branches of the second order which is known as the secondary root, and from the secondary root we have the tertiary root which is emerging out. So this is the characteristic feature of the tap root. Now here we have the second one which is the fibrous root. This is known as fibrous root because here we have a tuft or a cluster of equal sized roots. So these clusters of equal sized roots are seen in monocot plants. And this is the third example of the adventitious root system because it is developing from any other part other than the radicle. So it is developing from any other part. In this figure, we can see it is coming from the base of the stem. It is coming from the base of the stem. Now next is nothing but the regions of a root. Let us see the diagram and first understand what are the main regions in a root. In this figure we can see over here is first we have this root cap. This root cap is the apex. It is the tender apex of the root, is known as the root cap. It is protected by this cap like structure. And what does this root cap do? This root cap is going to secrete a sticky substance which is known as mucilage, which helps the root to penetrate into the soil. After the root cap, we have the region of meristematic activity which is known as the meristematic region. Now in this meristematic region, we have cells which are in the state of active cell division. So these cells are going to divide and they are going to form new cells. After that region, we have the region of elongation. So this meristematic region is also known as region of cell division. So this region was also known as the region of cell division, where cell division is going to take place. Then further we are going to have the region of elongation, where the cells are going to undergo the process known as the elongation. After that, we have this region which is known as the region of absorption, where we are going to have the root hair. These root hair are present in the region of absorption. So here it is not mentioned. This region of absorption is the region where these root hair are present. And finally, the topmost part of the root we are going to say is called as the region of maturation, because here the cells are going to get differentiated, wherein they are going to get matured and they are going to perform a particular function. Say as in the cells, when they get a particular role, suppose cells get the role of supplying water. अगर वो water supply कर रहे तो कौन से cell बनेंगे? They are going to form the cells of the xylem. When they are supplying food, they are going to form the cells of the phloem. So depending upon what function is assigned, so that is known as region of maturation or region of differentiation, wherein cells get a particular function or a particular role. So here we can see what is the root cap. So root cap is nothing but the tender root apex is protected by a thimble like structure, which is nothing but a cap like structure, which is called as root cap. Just above the root cap, we have the extending a few millimeter region, which is above is the meristematic region. So above the root cap, we have a small region which is known as the meristematic region. The region of elongation lies proximal to the meristematic region, which means above the region of meristematic region, we have the region of elongation. Then last region is the region of maturation, which is lying above the region of elongation. In between that, we have got a cluster of root hair which are arising, and this outermost region from where these root hairs are arising, this region is known as the epidermal region. This is known as the epidermal cells. So epidermal cells are going to produce numerous root hairs. Now with this, we are moving on to the modifications of the roots. Like we have already seen, the basic function of the root is nothing but fixation. It is absorption of nutrients. And now here we are going to see some special functions which the roots perform. Now because they are undergoing certain changes from their normal functions. The normal functions we have seen: fixation of the plant into the soil and supply of water and minerals. Apart from that, we can see roots, they are changing their shape and structure and to perform functions other than anchorage and absorption. So these anchorage and absorption were the main two functions of the root. Apart from that, the cell, which is the root hair cells, when they are having modification, which is changes in their shape, structure and performing their functions other than the anchorage and the absorption, they are known as modified roots. So here we can see the storage root, in which we have the tap root. This is called as the conical. The example is carrot. Then here we have got, this is known as fusiform. Fusiform example, we have the radish. And this is known as the napiform, wherein the example we have is the beetroot. So when we say the word they are swollen, which means they are tuberous. What they are tuberous? Why they are swollen? Because they have stored food materials. So food materials in them are stored. In case of carrot, we can say the base is broad and they have a narrow apex. This apex is narrow. Whereas in case of fusiform, we can see the base is not swollen. It is swollen where in the middle it is swollen and it is tapering towards both the ends. Now these ends are tapering. So that is the meaning of fusiform. Fusiform means it is swollen where in the middle and the ends are going to be tapering. In this napiform, we can see this particular tuberous root, it becomes swollen, almost spherical. It becomes swollen, almost spherical, and then we can see it is abruptly tapering to form the narrow apex. So this is the difference between conical, fusiform and napiform. This was the modification of the taproot system. Adventitious roots. Now these roots are arising from any other part other than the radicle. So these adventitious roots for food storage, they have got the following modifications. We can see over here that when they are, this is called as simple tuberous root. This is simple tuberous root when they are growing singly. When they are growing singly, and for this we have the example as sweet potato. And when it is growing in cluster or in groups, it is known as fasciculated tuberous root. Fasciculated tuberous root. So let us see the difference between simple tuberous root and fasciculated tuberous root. It means simple tuberous root means they are growing singly. They are growing singly, which means they grow single, and your fasciculated word means that these roots are going to grow in cluster, which is known as groups. So here we can see they do not have a definite shape. Their shape is irregular and they become swollen because they have got stored food materials. That is why they are known as tuberous. Tuberous means they store food and they become swollen and fleshy. So here we are going to see modifications of adventitious roots. Here it is for mechanical support. So here we can see these prop roots, they are modifications of adventitious roots for mechanical support. So here we can see in case of this is the picture of banyan tree. This is the example of banyan tree, wherein we can see from these horizontal branches, we have got these roots which are emerging out. So these roots which are coming from these horizontal branches, so these roots are known as the prop roots, and they grow vertically downwards till they are going to penetrate the soil and they are going to act as pillars. So they are acting as pillars which is supporting the heavy horizontal branches. So here we can see over here is these prop roots, they are massive pillar-like outgrowths of aerial branches. So they are massive pillar-like outgrowth of aerial branches. Now these are horizontal branches. They are going to grow vertically downwards and become large and woody, and they are going to act as pillars which is supporting the horizontal branches. So the example for this is the banyan tree. Here we have the stilt roots. These stilt roots, they are also known as the supporting roots, which are arising from the basal nodes just above the ground. So suppose we have the example over here, sugar cane. We can see this is the node region from the base of the stem. In the node region, this was the normal adventitious roots which are present. So what we can see over here is, here we have got cluster of equal size roots which are arising from where? They are arising from the basal node just above the ground. From the base of the node we can see cluster of equal size roots which are arising. They are known as stilt roots. Now in case of pandanus, we can see these roots are growing in a oblique manner, whereas in case of sugarcane we can see these stilt roots, they are forming a rosette fashion. They are forming in a rosette fashion like structure. These pneumatophores, they are modifications of the taproot. They are modifications of the taproot, where in this figure diagram we can see they are growing. These roots are first, suppose this is the soil and this is the stem. So here the roots, they first grow vertically downwards, and then, which means first they are growing towards the soil, they are positively geotropic, and afterwards they come out of the soil. they are going to come out of the soil in the form of projections. Now these projections which are present, they are known as pneumatophores. These projections which are present, they are known as pneumatophores. So here we can see these are pneumatophores. These are the structures which are coming out. These are known as the pneumatophores. Now these pneumatophores, they have got these structures which are present. These are known as the lenticels. These are known as the lenticels, which are nothing but they are the pores. They are the pores for exchange of gases. For exchange of gases. So if we want to see how these pneumatophores grow in case of plants like Rhizopora, Soneraceae and Heritiara, we can see it is very simple. First thing we got to remember is they are the modification of taproot. Now if we are drawing this as the taproot, so first it is growing towards the soil which is positively geotropic, and then we can see these branches which are coming out, they come out of the soil in the form of projections, and these projections are known as the pneumatophores. So these are nothing but the pneumatophores, and here we have got, they have got pores which are called as the lenticels. These pneumatophores have got these as the pores on them, which are known as the lenticels, which are present for exchange of gases. They are present for exchange of gases. Now over here we got to remember one thing, that these plants are mostly marshy. Wherever in oxygen deficient places, these plants are also known as halophytes, because these plants are growing where near the salt lake. So one word we need to remember is the marshy. Then we have to remember the word salt lakes. We have to remember the word salt lakes, and because of that we are going to call them as halophiles. So these are those plants. So that is why they are called as pneumatophores. So these are branches of the roots which grow vertically above the ground and bear openings. So they have openings which are called as nematothodes, or they are known as lenticels. These openings are called as nematothodes or lenticels for exchange of gases, and this is present in plants like rhizophores, which is Rhizopora. We can see this in Soneraceae. Then in case of Heritiara, these are the examples of these plants. So these are the ones which are known as the halophiles. These plants are the halophytes which are growing in salt lakes or marshy lakes. So here we move on to the next, which is the shoot system. When we see the shoot system, it is going to exclusively develop from the plumule of the embryo of the seed, which means it comes from the plumule, which is the epicotyle part, which is going to develop the plumule of the embryo of the seed. So here we have the characteristics of the stem. When we see the characteristics, so they have nodes and internodes, because there is the presence of these tightly packed cluster of cells which are called as nodes and internodes. So they have auxiliary and terminal buds. The buds which are on both the sides are known as the axillary buds, and they have also have the terminal bud which is known as the apical bud. Now they are generally green when they are young. So all stem begin their life in green color. मीन्स जब भी वो यंग रहते हैं तभी वो ग्रीन हो जाते हैं, और बाद में जब भी बहुत एजड हो जाएंगे दैट टाइम दे बिकम वुडी एंड डार्क ब्राउन. Functions of the stem, very important. What is the function of the stem? So stem एक मेन ऑर्गन है जो क्या करता है, वो स्प्रेड आउट होता है, वो क्या बनाता है, लीव्स बना रहा है, फ्लावर्स और फ्रूट्स. Just imagine if there is some problem to the stem. So there is no stem, so there will be no branches, there would be no leaves, flowers, fruits, seeds, कुछ भी नहीं. तो एक स्टेम इतने सारे और स्ट्रक्चर्स को ग्रो करता है. So this stem is going to conduct water and minerals which is absorbed by the roots. कहाँ पे? To the leaves. So from the roots to the leaves. कौन सप्लाई करता है वाटर एंड मिनरल्स? इट इज़ दी स्टेम. मतलब स्टेम बीच में एक हेल्पिंग पार्टनर है जो सप्लाई करने वाला है क्या? वाटर एंड मिनरल्स. कहाँ से? फ्रॉम दी रूट्स टू दी लीव्स. and the organic food which is prepared by the roots, by the leaves to the roots. So दोनों भी साइड ट्रांसपोर्ट का काम करता है. वाटर जो रूट्स में है उसको लेके जाता है लीव्स के पास, एंड लीव्स ने जो फूड बनाया उसको कहाँ पे लेके आता है? रूट्स के पास. So two-way transport. Now this stem, it can be modified for pollination. Pollination means when this plant can survive from one germination season to another under unfavorable conditions like drought or winter. Pollination means it is the ability of the plant to survive even under unfavorable conditions like drought or winter. सूखा पड़ जाना उसको क्या बोलते हैं? ड्राउट. और ठंडी के टाइम में क्या बोलते हैं? विंटर. नेक्स्ट वी हैव इज द वेजिटेटिव प्रोपगेशन. when the plant is forming from the vegetative parts like root, stem, leaves, bud. Root, stem, leaves and bud. It is known as the vegetative propagation. So stem is also doing the function of protection, support and photosynthesis if the stem is green in color. So here in this figure we can see different modifications of the stem. Now these are all underground modification of the stem. The first one is the rhizome, wherein you can see the example is ginger or turmeric. So in this particular figure what we can see is there are the presence of nodes, and we can see at the basal region we have these roots which are getting formed. They are the adventitious roots, or we can say they are known as the fibrous roots. And we have the shoot or the stem which is getting formed. The shoot or the stem which is getting formed. So these are the adventitious roots, and we have the upper part which is plumule, which is going to form the shoot or the stem. So the next example for such modification is this onion, which is a bulb. So here in this we have two examples of onion and garlic. We can see this is the adventitious root which is below, this is a bulb, and this is the base of the scape, wherein this base of the scape is going to grow vegetatively and give rise to a new plant. Next example we have over here is corm, which is known as example for this is Amorphophallus. Amorphophallus, which is Arsuran, or it is called as Jamikand, which is in Hindi. So this is the example for corm. So here also we can see nodes which are present, scale leaves are present where at the tips, and this is the corm. The last example for this is the tuber, wherein this is our normal potato, wherein we can see this is nothing but this was an eye. This eye is going to sprout and it is going to germinate, and from there we have the roots which are emerging. So underground stem of potato, colocasia, ginger, turmeric, etc. are modified to store food. So here we have the underground stem of potato, we have colocasia, we have ginger, we have turmeric, etc. are modified to store food. They act as organs of perennation. Perennation, which means they can survive the adverse unfavorable conditions, and they can do vegetative propagation. Modification of stem. So here we can see what all modifications are going to come in the stem. So here we can see this stem is becoming slender. Slender, which means thin. It is spirally coiled structure. It is helping the weak stemmed plants to climb onto a support. So we can say these tendrils are nothing but they are slender. They are spirally coiled structures allowing the weak stemmed plants to climb onto a support. So example for this, we have cucumber, we have grapevine. So here we can see they are having these curled structures which are known as tendrils. Then here we can see these are the presence of thorns. So these thorns are nothing but they are woody, they are straight, they are pointed structures. Now they are developing from where? From the axillary buds, and they are protecting the plant from browsing animals. So they are protecting the plant from the animals which are going to browse or graze on them. So example for this, we have citrus, we have bougainvillea. So this is the example for thorns. Here we can see when the leaves of the arid plants, they are modified into stem and they become thick, fleshy and green, and they carry out photosynthesis. So that is the fourth one. Here we can see this is the example of phyllodes. This is known as the phyllodes, wherein this leaf has become flat, green, and it is the performing what? Photosynthesis. So here it is doing the it is getting modified into stem. So this is an example of phyllodes, and the example is opuntia and euphorbia. Now modifications of the stem, another ones we have in case of strawberry and grasses, we can see the slender subaerial stem. So these are the slender subaerial stems which are helping them in vegetative propagation. Then in case of jasmine and mint, wherein we can see they have slender lateral branch which is arising from the base of the main stem, and they are helping to produce a new plant. Whereas in case of pistia and in case of acornia, we can see there is the presence of a lateral branch with short thick internode. So here we can see this lateral branch is present which is having thick short internode, and this pistia and acornia, these are aquatic plants. So they have got a lateral branch with short and thick internode, and the leaves are arranged in a rosette fashion, and they have a tuft of roots. These are the tuft of roots which are present below. Here we can see the modifications of the stem. We have another more examples for these modifications of the stem. So here we can see vegetative propagation by sucker of chrysanthemum. So why this is called as sucker? What is the reason behind this being called as the sucker? So here we can see this horizontal part branch of the root. It is growing downwards. First it is growing down in the soil, and then it is coming out of the soil. Then it is coming out of the soil, and when it is coming out of the soil, it is behaving as an aerial branch. So that is why it is known as the sucker. So in chrysanthemum and in case of pineapple, we can see a lateral branch of the stem which originates. So in case of this chrysanthemum and pineapple, we have the lateral branch of the stem which originates from the basal and underground part of the main stem, which is growing horizontally beneath the soil and then comes out obliquely, which means this is the stem. So first it is, we are going to see this lateral branch of the stem is growing below the stem, below the soil obliquely, and then it is coming out of the soil. So this is the modification of the stem, and this is known as the sucker, wherein the stem first grows horizontally below the soil and then it comes obliquely out of the soil and it gives rise to new leafy shoots. So let us move on to the next whole of the plant, which is the leaf. So here we begin with the next part of the morphology of flowering plants, which is the leaf. So leaf, in this figure, we can see this is the leaf base. This leaf base is also known as hypopodium. It is also known as hypopodium. So this is the part by which the plant is going to get attached. This plant is going to get attached to the stem. It is going to get attached to the stem. So this is known as leaf base or hypopodium. So here we can see this middle part, which is the petiole. This petiole is also known as mesopodium. It is also known as mesopodium. So this mesopodium is the middle part. The plant which is having petiole is known as petiolate, and the plant which is not having petiole or the leaf without petiole is known as sessile. Sessile word means without petiole, they do not have petiole. So that time the word sessile is used when there is no petiole, and when this petiole is present, it is called as petiolate. This is the main important part over here. This main important part of the leaf is known as the lamina. This lamina is the most important part, and it is known as the epipodium. It is known as the epipodium. So this lamina is the part of the plant which is exposed to sunlight. So this lamina is performing three major functions. First, it is doing the function of gaseous exchange, that is exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide with the air. Then it is doing the function of second one is transpiration, that is loss of water in the form of water vapor. And this lamina, when it exposes itself to sunlight, it is the site of photosynthesis. So it is because of this petiole that this lamina is getting exposed to sunlight. So let us see each and every part in details. Let us begin with the first part. What is the leaf? When we say a leaf is a lateral flattened structure. It is a lateral means it is present on both the sides. It is a flattened structure that is arising at a node from the shoot meristem. So each leaf passes a bud in its axis known as axillary bud. So in this figure also we could see that here we had buds on the axis. These buds are known as axillary bud. A leaf has the following three parts. First is the leaf base, which is known as hypopodium. Then is the petiole, which is known as mesopodium. Then is the lamina or leaf blade, which is known as epipodium. So let's begin with the leaf base. So leaf base, it is the part which is attaching leaf to the stem. It is the part which is attaching the leaf to the stem. Then in monocot, this leaf base expands into a sheath-like structure, whereas in dicots, this leaf base has got stipules. These stipules are to protect from grazing animals, to protect from grazing animals or browsing animals. So this is the function of these stipules. Now in members of the bean family, the leaf base is going to be swollen, and this swollen leaf base is known as pulvinous, and it helps in sleep movement. So we have seen this leaf base is different for monocot plants, for dicot plants, and the plant belonging to the bean family. Now next is the petiole. When we see the petiole is also known as, we have seen, it is known as mesopodium. It is known as mesopodium. It is the stalk of the leaf. So leaf with the petiole is known as petiolate. When it has petiole, it is known as petiolate. And when it is without petiole, it is known as sessile. And when it is without petiole, it is known as sessile. Without petiole, it is known as sessile. So this is what is the function of the petiole? The petiole is exposing the lamina so that it can get sunlight. So lamina and the leaf blade is the third and the last part. It is the green expanded structure of the leaf. It is the largest region, which is the main site for photosynthesis. It is supported by veins and veinlets, and there is usually a middle prominent vein, and that is known as the midrib, So function of this lamina is, first function is that it is going to do photosynthesis. First is the photosynthesis is the function of this lamina. The second function is gaseous exchange. The second function is going to be the gaseous exchange. And the third function is transpiration, which is loss of water in the form of water vapor. So these are the functions which are carried out by the lamina. So let us see leaf venation. When we can see the arrangement of veins, or we have veinlets, where in the lamina is known as the venation. So these veins and veinlets, they are going to provide the rigidity and support to the leaf blade. So very important is the presence of lamina. In this lamina, the presence of veins and veinlets. Suppose here we draw a simple leaf, which is the lamina of the leaf. So this means central one will be called as the vein, and here from the main mid vein we have the brush structures which are coming out. They are called as the veinlets. So they are channels. They are very important. First thing, they are going to provide rigid and support to the blade. Then they are the channels of transport of water, minerals, and they are going to supply the food materials. So when we say we have reticulate venation means these veins and veinlets are going to form a network. So this is the network arrangement on the lamina. Example for that is the dicot leaf. So here in this dicot leaf we could see this is the main vein, which is known as the mid vein, or this is the main prominent vein. The branches which are coming, and they are called as the veinlets. So this was the vein and this is the veinlets, and we can see these veinlets, they are arranged in a form of a network. So we have the arrangement of the veinlets in the form of a network. So this is called as reticulate venation. Whereas in this parallel venation, we can see these veins and veinlets, they are arranged parallelly. They are arranged parallel to one another. So veins on the lamina run parallel to one another. Example is monocot leaf. So what is the basic difference between reticulate venation and parallel venation is that veins and veinlets are present in the form of network. In reticulate venation, example is our dicot leaf. Whereas in case of parallel venation, the veins and veinlets, they are running parallel to each other, and that is the example for monocot leaf. The types of leaves. Types of leaves, we have got two main types of leaves over here. First is the simple leaf and the second one is the compound leaf. Now this types of leaf, it is based on the incision, which is the division present on the lamina. So if the incision on the lamina is not present, it is known as simple leaf. So when we can say the lamina is entire, so here we can see in this figure, first one, which is the lamina is entire, and that is known as the simple leaf. And where in compound leaf we can see the lamina is excised down to the midrib. So we can see simple leaf means a single leaf. Lamina is entire and it is not incised. The incisors do not run to the midrib. So that is why it is known as simple leaf, and it is present in mango and China rose. Whereas compound leaf, when the lamina is cut down to the midrib and then it is divided into number of segments. See, this is first segment, here we have the next. So here we can see the leaf is divided into number of units which are known as the leaflets. So this is the compound leaf, and here we can see they have very short stalk. Example is rose and neem. A leaf has a bud in its axil, but a leaflet will not have a bud in its axil. So here we are seeing the next part, which is the leaves arrangement of leaves, which is known as phyllotaxy. So the arrangement of the leaves on the stem or axis is known as phyllotaxy. So this is a very simple concept, and the last part of the leaves. So here we can see if the arrangement of leaves, if there is only one single leaf present at each node. Suppose this is the node and here we have one single leaf. Then here we have one node, one single leaf. So if one single leaf is arising at each node, it is known as alternate. And the example for this is China rose and sunflower, which means at the node region we have only one single leaf. But if at the node region we can see two leaves which are coming out from the which are arising at each node. At one node we have two leaves which are present. They are called as opposite. So when at each node we can see two leaves, a pair of leaves are present, which means two leaves. That is known as opposite. So example for that is Calotropis and guava. And the third is the wold, wherein we have more than two leaves which are arising at a node, and they are forming a whorl and a rosette fashion, wherein in this node we can see there are present of more than two leaves, which are three leaves. And the example for this is Alstonia. So with this we can see that we have completed our topics on root, stem and leaves from the chapter Morphology of Flowering Plants. So with this we have completed these three topics. So for more videos, please stay tuned with Study Live. Thank you.